He didn't want to have the mission canceled. He didn't want to lose the chance to fly the mission. So, with the ejector from his .30 caliber machine gun wedged into his thigh, he flew the mission.
Many miles out ahead of the bombers, the Hellcat fighters cross Truk's barrier reef and prepare to meet a storm of angry Japanese Zeros. Enemy fighters are in the air, but the aerial combat is less intense than last time. Many Zeros seem timid and uneager to engage. Still, one Enterprise Hellcat pilot, Lieutenant Junior Grade Bob Kansi, does suddenly find himself in a blistering aerial shootout. Kansi and a Zero go head-to-head, charging each other and firing all the way. The two fighter planes pass each other smoking and on fire. Both pilots bail out. Kansi drifts toward the water at the south end of the lagoon. Luckily, his survival gear includes an inflatable raft. But alone in hostile waters is the last place a pilot wants to be.
Your first priority, especially in colder waters, is to get out of the water. You're gonna hit the water, you're gonna want to release your coke fittings to get rid of that parachute. Parachute saved your life getting to the water, but once you're in the water, it's your worst enemy because it fills up with water and it becomes a sea anchor. So you need to pull out your shroud line cutter and get away from that parachute, and then you need to physically get yourself into the life raft and out of that water environment.
Kansi does just that, but once he's in the raft, his survival challenge has just begun. He's in the lagoon itself, between the islands and the outer reef. He must pick a direction in which to paddle, and only one makes sense.
He knew that he had to go out to sea, not back towards land, which most people would want to go towards land, but that was occupied Japanese territory. He knew his only way that he was going to survive is he had to get as far away from that land as he could, and hopefully be picked up by an American ship.
The downed pilot paddles to the reef, climbs over it, and starts paddling out to sea. Unfortunately, Kansi must spend the night on the water. While Bob Kansi is extricating himself from Truk Lagoon, Enterprise Task Force bombers spend the rest of the day streaking into the lagoon to pummel parked planes, hangars, and bomber strips on the island of Moen. The bombers also pay special attention to anti-aircraft batteries on Moen, exploding gun emplacements, and occasionally sending long metal barrels hurtling skyward. Darkness brings an end to the assault. But to the good fortune of Bob Kansi, the action resumes for a few final bombing runs the next day. April 30th. On the morning of the 30th, strangely, the anti-aircraft fire from Truk seems to have intensified and possibly become more accurate. The flak takes down 3 TBF Avengers from Enterprise. Fortunately, all the crew members survive. Luckily for Bob Kansi, one of the returning Avenger pilots happens to look down at the right time and spots Kansi drifting in his rubber raft. The bomber calls in the downed pilot's position to a task force escort vessel, the battleship North Carolina, and a float plane launched from the North Carolina heads for Kansi's location. The float plane is crewed by 2 men, but it's very small. Too small to lift off with a 3rd passenger. So the plan is for the plane to pick up Kansi and simply taxi him to an awaiting submarine, the USS Tang, for transfer. When the float plane taxis up to Kansi, the downed pilot climbs out of his raft and lets it go to swim to the plane.
And as he reached up, the plane was so small, reached up and when he grabbed the wing, the plane actually flipped over and capsized, and now you got 3 people in the water.
The plane sinks, and now all 3 men are stranded, supported only by their life vests. A second plane from North Carolina is dispatched.
Now this time they're very careful about what, they knew what happened before. What they did is 2 of them crawled up on each wing at the same time, trying to balance it out, and one straddled the tail. And what they did is they just basically motored to the USS Tang, which was a submarine, and then they offloaded onto that, and then they were safe.
Later in the day, a similar operation rescues 8 other Enterprise Task Force pilots down by anti-aircraft fire. The formidable Japanese hideout has proven to be a paper tiger. The assault on Truk has decimated a vast and irreplaceable quantity of Japanese shipping and bomber aircraft in the Central Pacific. 3 light cruisers, 4 destroyers, 3 patrol craft, and some 36 merchant ships and auxiliaries.
They left a lot of ships there, and I'm glad to report we got them all.
The Japanese have also suffered the loss of some 270 aircraft, fighters, and bombers. Hundreds of Japanese soldiers, sailors, and air crewmen are dead. And the loss of support facilities and airfield infrastructure is momentous. Enterprise is responsible for 1/3 of the enemy's total loss. American forces, on the other hand, have suffered 1 aircraft carrier damaged, 25 aircraft downed, and 40 air crewmen and sailors killed. Fortunately, rear seat gunner Dave Cawley, the air crewman wounded by his own machine gun, is not among the fatalities.
When they landed back on Enterprise, he of course got some medical attention. When the medical department examined him and x-rayed him, they found that the ejector from the weapon was so deeply lodged in his leg that they were either going to have to just close him up and just let him keep the ejector wedged inside, or they were going to have to perform major surgery. To perform major surgery, it was going to take him off of the flying schedule for several weeks. So he told them, "Sew me up." And he kept it for the rest of the war, the ejector from his weapon still lodged in his thigh.
Pilot Don Gordon never got his chance at a 5th enemy fighter during this second attack on Truk. But he has been lucky enough to live to fight another day. And the elusive status of ace might still one day be his to claim. For the stunned Japanese, Truk will be of no further use for the rest of the war.
When the reports first filtered back to Imperial Naval Headquarters that they had lost 220,000 tons of shipping, one Imperial Naval diarist said that the shock was beyond comprehension. It was a truly devastating event.
The enemy is never able to keep Truk sufficiently resupplied, and many of the surviving Japanese personnel on the island go hungry. For U.S. naval commanders in the Pacific, Truk is now a threat removed. And this accomplishment will help clear the way for much bigger fights to come. The American island-hopping campaign is now targeted at the Marianas, and a great battle above the Philippine Sea is in the offing.